Hey everybody, welcome back.
So we are going to hear from another speaker right now, Tom Chi on the screen. We're so happy that he's here to speak with us. Tom is the founder of Prototype Thinking LLC. He's lab director of Planet Earth, and most recently served as head of product experience at Google X, where he worked on developing technology such as Google Glass and Google's self-driving cars. His current focus is on working with social and environmental entrepreneurs. He has an MS and BS in electrical engineering from Cornell University. Thanks, Tom.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to try to do this real quick and have some time for questions at the end. So here we go. Sharing the screen. Yes, and you can go to my website. It's over. Oh, you are screen sharing. Oh, now it's infinite regression. Here we go. So a little bit of background, and then we're going to talk about the future of ag. Well, I guess this is the past of ag. So since the development of agriculture, human population increased a lot from about 7 million to over 7.5 billion today. And I think, when people hear human populations increased 1,000x, or even that we've got, billions of people and we're going to get to 10 billion, roughly around the year 2050, then there's immediately this thought, well, there's just not enough stuff. Like we have too many people and there's no way that we can get this to work. But here's a thought process which challenges that maybe. If you take the total biomass of all of humanity, it comes out to about 350 million tons. And it turns out that if you take the total biomass of all the ants in the world, also comes out to about 350 million tons. But a difference between humans and ants is humans eat a little bit less than 3% of their body weight per day, while ants eat about 30% of their body weight per day, which actually means that given that they have the same amount of biomass, that ants actually eat 10 times more of the earth every single day. And ants are omnivores, so this is not even like a vegetarian versus meat eater type argument. Like ants eat every kind of thing, but somehow even though ants literally eat 10 times more of the earth than us every day, we're not talking about how there's too many ants in the world. It's the main difference is that not the absolute amount, because they actually do eat more than us. It's actually the style in which they do it. The style in which they do it actually enriches the ecosystem instead of destroying it. Like ants create soils, recycling nutrients, tons of things that actually make their ecosystems healthier. And broadly speaking, ants follow the golden rule that basically all other species on Earth follow, except for us, which is providing more ecosystem services than ecosystem consumption. So really a lot of my work has been around how does humanity reset itself so that it also follows this very useful golden rule that all of life follows, which is producing more ecosystem services than consumption. So right now we're not doing that well on this. There's a lot of different ways that we're damaging the Earth. This is a characterization of the atmospheric impacts that we've been having. So, starting in 1750, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air is at 280. Then we burned a lot of coal, oil, gas, cement. We took a lot of land in order to go farm it in particular ways, and it basically added lots and lots of carbon to the atmosphere. And actually, if it hadn't been for the ecosystem helping us out, we'd already be at 570 parts per million. But luckily, the ocean and land absorbed a lot of that carbon, and the rest of it's still up in the air, which is leading to major climate destabilization. Though even though land helped us out, the ocean, in absorbing it, also got 30% more acidic. So it's on trajectory to become uninhabitable if we keep doing what we're doing. So we're kind of maybe on track to fully destabilize climate and make a planet with a dead ocean and wipe out 50% of species on Earth. So it's not great. And agriculture is basically right at the center of this stuff. So people talk a lot about renewable energy, and this is kind of the electrical generation part of this. So when you talk about solar farms and wind farms and hydro and all these sorts of things, it really speaks to this. Just this 25% of greenhouse gas emissions come from electrical generation. And if you look at agriculture, it's at 24%. It's basically as big as all the things that we're trying to displace. So, as we get, as we push really hard on renewable energies, and there is, still a real road to go there, like recognize that, what you all are studying and doing in agriculture is at least as important for trickle generation very soon. And it, for most of my slides, if I got them from somewhere, there's a citation at the bottom, so you can go and grab that resource from the link at the bottom. All right. Well, not only does it generate a lot of greenhouse gases, the way that we're doing agriculture is also just wiping out all the natural ecosystems on the planet. So I think when people think about, oh, the Amazon is being destroyed, then there's the sense, well, oh, it's being destroyed by these loggers. They're going in there and taking all the wood. But it's not really. It's actually, in South America, you can see it's a mixture of commercial agriculture and small landholder local agriculture, where they don't even try to take the trees. They just burn it down, and then grow a couple years of crop and graze some cattle on the land. And it, especially once the cattle are on there, it doesn't really come back. And this is actually true everywhere. There still are vast swaths of forests, Asia, Africa. You'll see that agriculture of different stripes basically dominates the reason that we are destroying that land. So, oh yes, and this is kind of the agriculture footprint. So the green places where we grow food for humans to eat, and then the purple places are where we grow stuff for feed and fuel, so to go feed animals and to go make biofuels. You actually see that we are using a relatively large percentage of the earth to go grow these plants, and a lot of it is going to feed and fuel. And when you look at the livestock footprint, you can see, yes, a huge percentage of land is used for livestock in some form. It's estimated that 40% of the Earth's surface of the Earth, 40% of the land surface of the Earth is used for agriculture, plant or animal agriculture, intensively of some kind. And when you're talking about the population growing and people also eating more calories, then we just do not have enough space to do the stuff the way that we have been doing it. And I'm putting these things together both because there is a really ecological, significant ecological importance in terms of habitat destruction and carbon emissions. But there is also, a actual physical constraint that if we were to try to keep doing things the way that we're doing them, we would actually truly just run out of room to go do this anymore. So this is to say that even if you didn't have a strong ecological conscience, that we would need to change agriculture anyway. So how are we going to go change agriculture? Well, this is kind of a breakdown. And we're gonna repivot around the human stomach for a second. So this is kind of like the average global diet. The American diet would have actually more animal products in it, but the average global diet, it's got this many calories per day. So this is, grams per capita per day. So it's got this much from animal products, grains, fruits, vegetables, that sort of thing, and you will expect a couple different things. You will expect a growth of this just because there'll be more people, because this is all per capita, and you will also expect a adjustment in mix, because we've been seeing a trajectory around the mix where people are eating more animal products over time, and it remains to be seen how significant the veggie-based meat substitutions are going to be, but the trends are what they are right now. Now, given this is kind of like my high-level game plan for how you're going to change agriculture, or how agriculture is going to change basically in the next 30 years. So we basically need to stop clearing forest and critical ecosystems to go, like we shouldn't cut down a rainforest in order to just plant some soybeans and graze some cattle. Like that environment is actually not that good for either of those plants or animals. So. And you're getting rid of something that it was functionally critical to the meso and macro function of the environment and weather in the continent. So yes, we need to stop that for multiple reasons. But the other main things that will happen are that a lot of things are going to move indoor, because the way that we're going to stop clearing forests and critical ecosystems is we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of agricultural land that is required to go feed all the people that we are wanting to feed. And to the extent that we continue to do outdoor, then it will be focused more on soil regenerative, locally resilient, and carbon fixing ways of doing that. So if you were to start where we are today, with a tiny sliver of our stomach coming from indoor agriculture type stuff, a chunk of it coming from outdoor agriculture, and then a chunk of it coming from outdoor animal agriculture. And I'm putting feedlots in there as well, because feedlots are kind of indoor outdoor. They're not fully like mechanized indoor. Well, you kind of get it. They're all in that category. Then you would expect this to shrink, all the outdoor stuff to shrink actually significantly. Like, if things go really well in the year 2050, we are using, less than half the ag land that we are using right now. I think it'd be better for it to be a third, because that would actually fully relieve the ecosystem pressures that we're creating. And what's going to replace it? Well, this outdoor animal agriculture, cell agriculture of different types are going to come in and replace that. And of course, obviously, some alternative meats are going to come in and replace that as well. And I also believe that, and you guys just saw a panel on this, that indoor agriculture is going to grow really significantly. And a lot of this has to do with land use. It also has to do with the amount of inputs that are required, and also the certainty of the quality of your outcome product. And for those reasons, outdoor agriculture and outdoor animal pastoral work is going to shrink significantly, and cell agriculture and indoor agriculture is going to be, I believe, the majority of the food that we are eating by the year 2050. Now, what does it look like in practice? Well, you just heard from Iron Ox. They're doing fully robotic agriculture. They're working on automating all the different processes and practices that are required to grow many different types of food. And they're also trying to do it at a price point which is competitive with outdoor agriculture. So this wouldn't be limited to just high value crops like herbs or microgreens or marijuana. Like, this is meant to go for the much more the middle of all the different things that we'd want to grow. Another thing that we're seeing is, and this has already happened, like the Netherlands has gone really all in on producing a lot of food, flowers, agricultural products in greenhouses, and through that they become a major, net exporter. For a very small country with a very small population, they become a net exporter of a number of agricultural goods. And kind of, common between these two, is that, and contrary to some of the other things that is going on in the startup world right now, is that these are trying to grow using sunlight as opposed to grow lights. Because if you look at the cost of growing indoors but having grow lights, well, it works for some high value crops like marijuana, fine. Like it'll grow a little bit faster. It's high enough value per pound that you can justify grow lights. But for so many other crops, like the OpEx on the grow lights makes it so that it becomes non-economical to go and grow in that fashion. And folks are like, well, LEDs will get more efficient. But LEDs, if you look at the efficiency of LEDs, it's already long asymptoted. And, it's about 50 to 60%. And even in the best world, you can't get more than 100%. So the savings on OpEx for LEDs has just got an absolute line to it that you can't go over, and it doesn't work out for a lot of crops. So using sunlight is way better. Being in the greenhouse lets you control a lot of things and also get really high density. All right, cell agriculture. So you guys may have heard of Memphis Meats. You don't grow a cow to go get a steak. You just take some cow cells and you grow a steak. And they do a bunch of different types of meats already. So beef, chicken, duck, lamb, pork, and just starting with the initial cells. And it tastes like meat because it is meat. I'm an investor in this company, so I've had some of this meat. It tastes like meat. All right. Another type of cell agriculture. So there are approaches as well where you just take you take a different type of cell, in this case yeast and sugar, and through a modified yeast and fermentation you can make protein. And this is in comparison to the efficiencies that you might get by getting all your protein from soybeans or pea protein, culture process, which ends up being significantly more expensive than if you can get cells to go do it. So both in terms of the amount of inputs, the cost of inputs, and the quality and repeatability of product, then cell agriculture of various types just gives you fewer inputs and more consistent outcomes if you're trying to produce protein. And now we talk about the stuff that's going to be outdoors. So I've done some work with Gabe Brown's ranch and visited a number of places where they're doing soil regenerative agriculture. And to the extent that we are doing outdoor ag, then this should kind of be the name of the game. And this will, I racked my brain for a while on how to get Gabe's practices out to everybody. But in a way, it's actually too straightforward for it to be like a big technical push. Not to say that we've given up on that. It really is things like no-till, cover crops, the Savory Institute methods of circulating in tight paddocks. Like, it's about 20 different practices, which are relatively easy to describe and take a couple years to get under your belt. But once you do it, you can build a lot of soil. And I went out there with a team of soil scientists, and this is one out of 100 that we pulled from his land, and this is normal. In this soil core, he's got 29 inches of Horizon A soil, which he built over 20 years, which is, according to the books, should not even be possible. But it's truly amazing if you actually really get focused on building soil. And it's also important because if we were able to just increase the soil organic matter in the lands that we actively farm by right now by a factor of 2, that would already pull down 1 trillion tons of carbon dioxide, which would fully pay off the debt that we have put in there through the Industrial Revolution up until now. And the Gabe's approach is going to be great for like small to mid-sized farmer, and it's really just changes in practices. And for some of the really large scale, industrial ags, then something like what Netafim does, which is digital farming, precision agriculture, and they're basically like they kind of started focused in like the drip irrigation space, but you can do a lot with sensors and nutrient distribution over large scales and outdoor ways, and it has a lot of the same benefits that some of the indoor ag has in terms of dramatic reduction in inputs in order to get the same or better crop outcomes, and obviously deployable on a large industrial scale. All right, I'm going to stop sharing now. That's my last slide if you need to get in contact with me. And I think I started 2 minutes late, so if people have 2 minutes of questions, then there we go. Where can we find these slides? I can send the slides out to a thing. Oh, and also it's on Crowdcast, according to Jim. That's it? There's no questions? There's just a thumbs up. Thanks, Sarosh. Is that working? Hey, people. Yeah. So I thought there would be time for questions. Oh, check the questions tab. There's a questions tab. You noted the inefficiency of grow lights for indoor agriculture. What are the externalities of each of the various alternatives that you have spoken of? So the nice thing about something like Iron Ox, for example, which you guys just heard from, is that there isn't a lot of they have a hydroponic nutrient mix, and they have a remixing machine that basically goes and just inserts the nutrients that have been depleted by the plants in that grow tray. So just imagine a type of agriculture where everything that you put in there actually gets used by the plants. Like the level of externalities is way less actually. And when you go and do indoor, you can also site it closer to where people live. So even the transport externality. I think a few people would disagree that indoor agriculture will be part of the solution, but what makes you believe it'll be such a large part of the future agriculture? I think it's really just having gone through the numbers, especially when you are able to do, if you can get away from grow lights and you can use robotic labor, then indoor agriculture becomes viable for a very large percentage of crops that it wouldn't have been viable for before. The other thing about it is, if you look at how we're growing food, America is a bread basket, parts of Europe, Switzerland, Netherlands, or whatever are a bread basket. And you look at that sort of thing, and actually, we make so much stuff that we're using a lot of it for animal feed and fuel. So like, I don't think it's a situation where we need to use anything close to the amount. And I've actually calculated how much of the land that we need to use. I think we need to use something like 5 to 6% of the land that we're currently using for agriculture to feed ourselves. So yeah, could you do that indoor? Pretty sure you could. And then, good to see you here. Have you worked with biochar? Yeah, I did a whole thing about biochar recently.
And hey, Tom, we're gonna jump in here. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh yeah, we're out of time. But biochar is
jump over to the next session.
Yeah,
but
everybody go to the next session.
But thank you so much. That was super interesting. We loved it. And what we'd love you to do is, if you want to take a look at all these questions that are in here, you can feel free to write us a few short comments, and we can add these into this session here on Crowdcast, I believe. So we can type them in as comments from our end, if you've got a couple answers to those.
Oh, I'm writing the biochar one right now.
Great. And you can even do it in the public chat if you want, because this will stay dedicated to this session. But we're going to thank you so much for your time. We're going to end this session and jump over to our next talk. But Tom, thank you so much for everything. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everybody.
Bye. See you in the next session 4.